Welcome to the video. Today we will explore why parking large amounts of cash in high-yield savings accounts and CDs can quietly sabotage your long-term wealth, especially after you've already maxed your tax-advantaged accounts. We'll outline a clear framework for liquidity, show how to shift from capital preservation to capital appreciation, and walk through an actionable plan to move surplus cash into a diversified investment strategy. Let's begin. Here's the game plan. First, we'll define the problem and the liquidity-first framework. Next, we'll contrast stagnation versus growth and explain why CDs and high-yield savings tend to lag over long horizons. Then, we'll introduce taxable brokerage accounts as your next wealth engine after maxing tax-advantaged accounts. After that, we'll provide an action plan and a practical timeline playbook. We'll reinforce concepts with diagrams and short quizzes. Finally, we'll summarize key takeaways and discuss next steps. Before we proceed, a quick disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial, legal, or tax advice. Investing involves risk, including potential loss of principal. Your personal situation, risk tolerance, and goals matter. Please consult a qualified fiduciary financial advisor or tax professional before making decisions. Now let's define the trap. Many diligent savers max out their 401k, IRA, and HSA, yet still accumulate a sizable cash surplus. That cash often sits in CDs or high-yield savings accounts, which offers psychological comfort and nominal interest. However, over long horizons, this prioritizes safety over growth, causing your money to lag inflation-adjusted returns. In other words, you preserve today's dollars, but may sacrifice tomorrow's wealth. Let's begin with the essential framework. Liquidity comes first. Maintain an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. Hold this reserve in a safe, instantly accessible savings account so it is dependable. Once the emergency fund is established, scrutinize any additional cash by considering timing. If you need the money in under 5 years, prioritize capital preservation. Between 5 and 7 years, consider a balanced approach. Beyond 7 years, emphasize growth. Always match the investment vehicle to the time horizon. Cash-like instruments for near-term needs, and diversified portfolios for long-term goals. Let's compare stagnation with growth. On the left, CDs and high-yield savings accounts tend to offer nominal yields and low volatility, but they mostly offset inflation without providing much real growth. They also expose you to reinvestment rate risk when CDs mature, and the interest is usually taxed at ordinary income rates. On the right, diversified index funds introduce market volatility, but offer higher expected returns over long horizons. They facilitate automatic reinvestment and compounding. Additionally, tax-efficient ETFs and long-term capital gains treatment can improve after-tax outcomes in taxable accounts. Here's why CDs often fall short across decades. First, inflation gradually erodes purchasing power, and nominal yields may not keep up over long stretches. Second, the opportunity cost is substantial, because keeping large balances in cash forfeits compounding from productive assets. Third, the interest from CDs is generally taxed at ordinary income rates, which can further reduce your net return. Finally, there is a mismatch between the tool and the goal. Cash instruments are designed for preservation, whereas long investment horizons are better served by growth-oriented portfolios. This flowchart illustrates how to route surplus cash. You start by asking whether you have surpluses beyond the emergency fund. If you do not, you first build the emergency fund to 3 to 6 months in savings. If you do, you evaluate timing. If you need the funds in under 5 years, you keep them in high-yield savings, CDs, or short-term treasuries to prioritize preservation. If your need is in the 5 to 7 year band, you use a balanced mix of stocks and bonds in a taxable account to balance risk and growth. If the need is beyond 7 years, you invest in diversified, low-cost index funds, typically stock-heavy with some bonds, in a taxable brokerage account. Throughout, consider your risk tolerance and rebalance annually. Here is the step-by-step plan. First, ensure your emergency fund covers 3 to 6 months of expenses in a safe, accessible savings account. Next, list your goals and categorize them by time horizon. Then, identify surplus cash that is not needed within the next 5 to 7 years. Open or use your taxable brokerage account. Select diversified, low-cost index funds. For example, a total stock market index paired with a broad bond index. Automate transfers from your savings account to your brokerage to enforce discipline. As CDs mature, redirect the proceeds into your chosen portfolio according to your schedule. Reinvest dividends, rebalance at least annually, and document an investment policy statement so you can remain consistent through market cycles. Now let's make this even more concrete with a timeline playbook. This table serves as a quick playbook. For needs under 5 years, use cash-like vehicles such as high-yield savings, CDs, or treasury bills to preserve principal. For 5 to 7 years, consider a balanced portfolio such as 60-40 or 70-30 to balance growth and stability. For horizons beyond 7 years, lean toward a growth-oriented allocation like 80-20 or 90-10, adjusted for your risk tolerance. Regardless of horizon, always maintain an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months in cash for unexpected events. Let's connect the mechanics. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses and savings for emergencies, then transfer monthly surpluses into your taxable brokerage account. Use the brokerage to buy low-cost, diversified index ETFs or mutual funds that represent broad market exposure. Dividends are paid periodically. Reinvest them to fuel compounding. Favor tax efficiency by holding positions long enough for long-term capital gains when appropriate, and by selecting tax-efficient ETFs. Keep expense ratios low because fees compound against you. Finally, write a simple investment policy statement so you remain committed through volatility. Quiz time. The question is, after maxing tax-advantaged accounts and securing a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, what is the best next step for long-term wealth? Option A. Keep all remaining cash in high-yield savings or CDs. Option B. Invest surplus cash in diversified, low-cost index funds in a taxable brokerage. Option C. Spend the surplus on discretionary items because markets are risky. Option D. Time the market by waiting for a perfect entry point. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is to invest surplus cash in diversified, low-cost index funds in a taxable brokerage. After you have addressed liquidity needs and maxed your tax-advantaged space, a taxable account provides the next avenue for compounding and growth over decades. Next quiz. If you plan to use a portion of your cash for a known expense in 3 years, where should that portion likely be kept? Option A. In a diversified equity portfolio for maximum growth. Option B. In high-yield savings, CDs, or short-term treasuries to preserve principal. Option C. In speculative assets for potential quick gains. Option D. Under the mattress to avoid bank risk. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is to keep that portion in high-yield savings, CDs, or short-term treasuries. With a 3-year horizon, preserving principal is more important than seeking higher expected returns that come with market volatility. This timeline highlights the long arc of compounding. Starting at year 0, you set up the emergency fund. Over years 1 through 5, you automate contributions to a taxable brokerage and keep investing through market cycles. At year 10, you emphasize rebalancing and tax management, such as harvesting losses where appropriate and maintaining long holding periods. By year 20, the portfolio has scaled through contributions and reinvested dividends. By year 30, you may approach financial independence if savings, discipline, and market outcomes cooperate. In parallel, the cash-heavy path shows comparatively muted growth because little capital is exposed to productive assets. A few practical tips can improve execution. Automate transfers and reinvest dividends to reduce reliance on willpower. Keep costs and taxes low by selecting broad, low-turnover ETFs and holding long enough for favorable capital gains treatment where appropriate. Align your asset allocation with your time horizon and personal risk tolerance. Rebalance on a set schedule rather than reacting to market headlines. Finally, document a 1-page investment policy statement and adhere to it across cycles. Let's wrap up. First, secure your emergency fund in a safe savings account. Next, let time horizons drive your vehicle choice. If you have no meaningful needs within 5 to 7 years and have already maxed tax-advantaged accounts, move surplus cash into diversified, low-cost index funds in a taxable brokerage. Automate contributions, reinvest dividends, and rebalance to harness compounding. Document your plan and stay consistent. Now, one final note before we close. Thank you for watching. If you found this valuable, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more content on building long-term wealth. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, and your personal strategy in the comments below.